Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it. We got another anonymous question from our Discord community that says, when applying to a company, what advantages do candidates with references have over those who don't? As a hiring manager, I don't know whether you have references until the very end of the interview. And at that point, it really doesn't matter, because if I've made the decision to hire you, I'm probably going to extend that offer regardless of what your references tell me, unless your references tell me something really, really bad. My thinking as a manager, though, is references are kind of silly, to be honest. It's like, when I think about references, I think about like, hey, give me the names of 3 people that are going to tell me really nice things about you. By that point, I've probably already made a decision whether I'm going to hire you, and what your references tell me about you are probably not going to sway that opinion too much. But it might. I've also worked, when I applied at a bunch of these companies back in December and January, of all of the offers that I got, I think only one asked me for references. The rest of them didn't even ask me for references. They just made an offer. Only one of them made an offer, and then as part of the offer, they wanted to check references. And so I found them some people that were going to say nice things about me. There are some questions that they can ask people who provide a reference to say, like, what do you think about Ian? Would you work with Ian again? Things like that. But there are also questions that are illegal to ask. Like, they can't ask why you left the company. They can't ask your reference why you left. They can ask your reference whether they would hire you again. And that's kind of a way to sort of cheat around that question. Because if you got terminated, if you got let go, I'm not allowed to ask, like, why did you leave? And they're probably not going to say, oh, we fired them for reasons. They're not going to disclose that. And and there are questions as well that are just straight up illegal to ask. So there are certain things that they can't ask, but there are things that they can ask to kind of get around it. And one of those being, like, if you were to start a new company, would you consider hiring them again? Those kinds of questions. If they say no, then that lets me know that you didn't leave on good terms. And so maybe I want to follow up on that, but there aren't too many glaring things there. Now, if it's a previous manager, I might ask, how do I motivate them? Like, how did they work best? What kind of contributions did they make that really stood out? And I can ask them those kinds of questions. But I've also been the hiring manager on the other side where I just refuse to answer those questions. Like, I'll answer them in a very generic way. Like, I can verify that they worked here from this date to this date, and that's all I can say. And a lot of companies will also take that stance. If you get approached as a manager to give a reference, that you're only allowed to verify, yes, they were an employee here. Yes, they worked from this date to this date. Yes, this was their title, and that's all I'm allowed to tell you. And that's all they can ask. They can ask all the questions they want, but if that's all I'm allowed to tell them from a company's perspective, then they're not going to get anything more out of me. So there are limitations, and that's also why I think that making these reference calls is kind of silly sometimes. Now, you can get some character aspects of, like, what's their personality? Did they work well on a team? Did other people on the team get along with them? You can ask those, but again, not every company is going to be willing to allow managers to answer those kinds of questions, or the manager might just say, like, hey, if you really need answers to those, let me redirect you to the HR group, and the HR team can, look through, reviews and so on to try to answer those questions for you, but I can't give you an answer to that. It sounds like you're kind of dodging it for maybe bad reasons. And so if I were making a call and the company was unwilling to, like, say even just whether or not you worked well on a team, if they won't even tell me that, it does start to sound a little suspicious, because most people are happy to say, like, oh yeah, Ian got along great with everybody, or yeah, everybody really misses having Ian around, or whatever. That always sounds good to hear that as a reference. That's not always going to be the case, though. And sometimes on those reference calls, you will get people who are very candidly honest about why you left and how well you worked on the team, but there are legalities about what you're allowed to ask. Now, if they volunteer it, and I didn't ask the question, but they're still telling me anyway, I can still make a note of it. Me personally, as a hiring manager, I've never rescinded an offer based on what a reference told me. So when we think about the notion of this question specifically, like when applying to a company, if I have references, is that some sort of benefit over somebody who won't provide references? I would say if I'm asking you for references and you straight up refuse to give me references, that's a little concerning. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but I might ask why you're not going to provide references. But if it is company policy that I get references and that I make some reference calls, then I'm going to ask you for them and I'm going to expect that you're going to cooperate. If you've got a reason why, like if you've never had a professional job and you just don't have any references and like you generally don't want to put like a family member or something like that, down as a reference, because of course your family's going to tell me great things about you. But if you've never had like a professional level job or anything like that, and you legitimately say like, I actually don't have any kind of previous experience, I'm not going to have references to give. I've probably already seen that on the resume. And if I'm still pushing you for references, then, what's really my expectation, going to be out of that? If I've made the decision at that point to hire you, I really don't personally care about your references. If I think you can do the job, I'm going to hire you. That's how it should be in the tech industry. If you can prove that you can do the job, you should get the job. It shouldn't matter about calling references, but there have been circumstances where I wish I had called references and find out like what was that person's behavior, did they work well in a team? And I've told a story on the stream before about someone who, started acting very inappropriately once we had hired them, and then we had to let them go like in less than a month of employment because they were kind of creeping people out on the job. It's like, okay, maybe we could have caught that ahead of time. And so sometimes when things like that happen, you kind of refine your process and go, okay, if someone on the team raises an alert of, hey, I kind of felt, kind of creeped out by this person, then okay, maybe I'm going to call their references. Most of the time though, me personally, I'm not going to bother checking references because it doesn't make that much of a difference. But for this specific question, like, is it an advantage to have references? Not really. I mean, unless the reference is like a super famous person or somebody I already know, or something like that, then I'm not going to bother calling the references. And like I said, by that point, I've already made a decision whether to hire you. So it's probably not going to help much one way or the other. Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.